Welcome to the Legit Football NFL Podcast. Brian McFadden here, co-founder of Legit Football. We are live on YouTube. It is Monday, March 6th, 2023. The NFL Combine has just wrapped up and the news has just getting started. We've got a lot of great legit headlines to cover. We've got a really exciting main topic and we have some breaking news. The QB carousel has begun to spin. It started earlier today. But as always, you know I'm not doing this by myself. Let's bring in my partner in crime, Kevin Phillip Fox.
Hey.
The headlines, the stories, the content is just writing itself at this point. Kevin, we are just on the roller coaster. How are you feeling?
Brian, I'm feeling fantastic, man. This is the juiciest legit football episode I've been a part of, and we covered a Super Bowl together. I think there might be some juicier topics today than Super Bowl football itself. So I'm ready to just dive right in. We got a stacked roster today.
The funny thing is, it's going to get so much crazier. Like, this is actually going to be tame a week from now when legal tampering, when free agency starts, as the draft comes up. We're going to kick off the show talking about the first QB domino, but that's not the biggest domino that could fall in the QB realm. There's probably going to be some trades that we haven't even thought about if you remember the last offseason.
Insane.
So as excited as you are for today, it's really just an appetizer.
This is the appetizer. It's the spinach and artichoke tip of football news.
Is that your thing?
I like spinach and artichoke tip. Buffalo wings, those are the top two.
That makes sense. It's Buffalo, northern, upstate New York. What else are you going to eat up there? You mentioned a full roster. It is not just me and you today. We do not have one, but two guests that are going to join us to break down this great day of NFL news. First, let's bring in ye old faithful, recurring regular of ours, Jimmy Ray of Twitter's NFL Stats, looking off-season upgraded without the glasses, got some facial hair. I think he was trying to, he was going for the Indianapolis Colts head coaching gig, lost out to Shane Steichen. I'm assuming this is part of that look, Jimmy?
Yeah, and then I went to the Combine Saturday, and I tried out for the QB position. So I'm trying out different things here. I'm going from head coach to quarterback. We'll see what happens, but I got contacts so I could see a little better on the field.
Love it.
I hope you were not standing between Will Levis and Anthony Richardson because that would have just hurt your cause.
I was next to Bryce Young the entire time.
There you go.
Smart. That's called strategy right there.
Yeah.
We mentioned before we started recording that, Jimmy, maybe there should be a combine for Twitter experts, fastest retweet, that kind of thing. You would be a top 5 pick in my mind if that were an actual thing. Jimmy, it's been a little while since we had you on. Obviously, you were a big part of 30 Minutes of Football. We did our power ranking show. You did stats with our producer, Anthony. So since we haven't been able to catch up with you, how are you feeling? Where's your head at for the Colts and for the NFL as a whole?
Yeah, for the Colts, I'm just excited to finally get a young quarterback. I know that's going to happen eventually with all the talk coming down. And I think we have a good draft class coming in with the quarterbacks. We have 4 quarterbacks that could go anywhere in the top 10. I feel like we have a lot of options when it comes to the number 1 position, number 2, number 3, number 4. It's going to be hard to predict that exact order for the quarterbacks.
Do you have, and I know it's early, we haven't had pro days or any other news that came out, but do you have a preference? Who do you want the Colts to get? Let's say they get up to number 1.
If they get up number 1, I like CJ Stroud. I feel like he's a good
hot take.
I feel like he's a good middle ground. Hot take, maybe.
Had a great throwing session.
Yeah, I like his size. I love the throwing session that he had against Anthony Richardson. I think there's a lot of hype on him, and I expected that after the Combine.
Beast.
We all knew he was going to test well, and that sort of things always happens with certain quarterbacks. They're like, late first, and then they go to the Combine and like, wow, they're good. Like, of course. But I think GMs and head coaches will be more oblivious to the Combine and more like on the film, on the throws that he can make. I don't think the Combine was any surprise to those guys.
So let's fill out this roster. We really are we're the bit players. We're the supporting cast here. Let's bring in our superstar, the newest member of the Legit Football team, Rachel Smith. You have probably seen, if you're following us on YouTube, the most recent video she did on the 3 biggest cuts. You're going to be seeing more content from her. Rachel, welcome to the Legit Football NFL podcast. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I need walk-in music, but this will do now. Calling me the
Anthony,
superstar.
I'm telling you, we have to upgrade this show. That's brilliant.
That's a good idea.
We were just talking about sound effects. We should have walk-in, like wrestler, like WWE, like lights flashing, all of that kind of stuff. We try to make this a professional podcast. At the end of the day, Rachel, it's just a bunch of us getting around talking about football. It's just an excuse, and we just happen to put it out there for the masses. Let's go ahead and jump in. Before we get into our legit headlines, there was some breaking news that did not make it into today's legit football, but the first QB domino has fallen. This is like Kevin's thing. He's obsessed with the QB carousel.
I love the QB carousel. It's my favorite part of the offseason.
But hey, we have actual news. At least one person we don't have to speculate on, and that is quarterback Derek Carr signs with the New Orleans Saints. 4-year deal, $150 million with $100 million in total guarantees. It's effectively 70 fully guaranteed, 60 at signing, and another $10 million in 3 years vesting after year one. So there's a little bit of insurance built in there. Carr structured the deal to accommodate the Saints' cap issues, which you can debate, are cap issues even real at this point? The Saints in particular, Mickey Loomis has made a practice out of like, oh, we're 50 million over. Psh, doesn't matter. Let's sign one of the hottest free agents on the quarterback market. So obviously, Kevin, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts? We've discussed Carr and various landing points in previous episodes, but now that it's official, how are you feeling with this?
So first and foremost, I'm gonna officially decide that we're doing letter grades for this signing.
Oh, okay.
That's my decision. I'm all about it.
I love the executive decision, not like a suggestion. Like, hey, can we do letter grades? Kevin's like, nope, we're doing this.
Brian, I think we're about as effective at letter grades as the teachers who gave me A's. You know what I'm saying? The smart ones, the good teachers.
I was gonna say, was that like most of your teachers, or are you talking about like a minority that like one or two that felt bad for you and gave you A's?
We'll leave that one for the people's imaginations. But I would like to. I've been saying this for a long time. I think Derek Carr is severely underrated. I've always been higher on him than consensus. I think in the right system, Derek Carr could be a top 10, top 15 quarterback. I think the Saints, as far as the right system goes, I think this is that might be a stretch to call it the right system, but
they got talent at least. They have some weapons.
I was doing some research and I saw that Andy Dalton went, I believe, 6-8 as a starter with this team, and I think Derek Carr is significantly better than Andy Dalton, like a full quarterback tier ahead. And Andy Dalton had a 95.2 quarterback rating in this system, and I think Derek Carr can definitely break 100 with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and Jawan Johnson. And if Kamara's legal issues get sorted out, we have Alvin Kamara. I really think that this is a huge upgrade for the Saints, and I'm going to give it an A+ for Carr because he got his money and he didn't have to wait for any dominoes to fall. He decided to take his fate into his own hands, which I like. And I'm going to give it an A- for the Saints because I still think that there's a fear that you pointed this out last week when we talked about Derek Carr, that they might not be a Derek Carr away. So it might be another offseason of rebuild and tumult and fixing the freaking cap hell that they've found themselves in. But they're at least starting off with the most important piece of building a franchise, which is the quarterback. So I love the signing. A- though, because I don't think it's a overnight success. I think this might just be the first step in a couple steps that get them back to being playoff and Super Bowl contenders.
So I've now learned we're doing grades for the player and the team. Okay, we pivot. We roll with things as we go.
That's what it's all about.
So Rachel, it was mentioned a little bit, but it's gone a little bit under the radar that the two biggest teams were the Jets and the Saints for Derek Carr. If he goes to the AFC East, you're going up against Josh Allen. You're going up against Bill Belichick, at least. You know, the Dolphins, whether it's Tua or someone else. We'll get to that later in the show. Clearly with a very high-powered offense. But he chose the NFC South, which will be the first division since, I think it's 1973. Jimmy, the stats guy, feel free to correct me here, where an entire division will have a brand new starting quarterback from one year to the next. All of a sudden, Derek Carr is the king of the NFC South. How do you like this fit in New Orleans?
I mean, since we're doing grades.
Apparently we are. I twist my arm.
I think, I would give it a B+. I mean, he's 31 years old. He seems to have a lot of respect from the guys in the locker room. I think that kind of energy New Orleans could definitely build off of. And I think it's an exciting place for what that whole division could mean. I think I like it. I think we'll see. I'm proud of him for getting his money, and it seems like everyone's excited about it. I think New Orleans needs some change for sure. And he still seems young enough, still hungry enough to possibly be that. I don't think it's an overnight success, like turnkey type of operation, but I think if you get the right key players in there, everyone can really like rally around them.
I think at the very least it'll be exciting to watch. I mean, nobody was excited about Andy
Right.
Dalton. Jameis wasn't even starting anymore. There's got Chris Olave. They have Raheem Shaheed. They have Juwan Johnson. They have these number of young and up-and-coming talents. Running back position with Kamara is a question mark, but they could just be playing from behind, or they could just go 9-8 and win a very, very bad NFC South. Jimmy, my question for you is, he didn't even he didn't wait on the Jets. He didn't wait for the Rodgers situation to play out. Was that a smart decision by Carr, or maybe you could have gotten more money if you would have just waited? Because if Rodgers turns the Jets down, suddenly the Jets are a little more desperate. How do you view Carr's decision to sign with the Saints at this moment?
Honestly, I feel like the money wouldn't have been too different. I feel like it was the right call just to get that domino into effect and get the ball moving, because now they get to go into a free agency, make decisions based off their cap with Derek Carr. And I think Aaron Rodgers is taking a little too long. I mean, not too long necessarily for the Packers. I think they're willing to wait. But it's always more beneficial to make those decisions quicker, especially for the teams. And I think when the teammates look at that, I think they'll appreciate that for sure. But also, I'll give it a B+, by the way, if we're doing that. I'm more of a 1 to 10 kind of guy with the decimal point after. So like nice. 7.8 maybe is what I would give it. That's my B scale. I don't know.
See, we don't prep our guests. We're just like I wasn't even prepared for grades, but I guess I'll throw it in. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking B+. I could be convinced to an A-. Armand, our regular in the chat, says Carr is A- because the NFC South is not a strong division outside of Philly and the 49ers. NFC is wide open. I think that's the big thing here for Carr, and I'm actually fine with him making this decision instead of waiting on the great Mr. Rodgers to make a decision. Is that the NFC is such a great landing spot for him. He's going to go from a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and the artist formerly known as Russell Wilson to the NFC, where he could just play a little bit better and win that division. No more Tom Brady. The Panthers and the Falcons are still in the QB market. So I like it from that perspective. Let's keep talking quarterbacks. And Jimmy, you mentioned Rodgers, so I'll let you start with this one. Our legit headlines, we'll start here. Anthony, pop up our legit headlines. See, there you go. I always got to make sure he's paying attention. Adam Schefter, Aaron Rodgers is likely to either play for the New York Jets or retire. Schefter senses that the two, quote, most likely scenarios are to either play for New York or end up retiring altogether. Does not see Rodgers returning to Green Bay. During their coverage of the Combine, both Daniel Jeremiah and Rich Eisen of NFL Network mentioned hearing a lot of buzz surrounding Rodgers and the Jets. So he's come out of the darkness, right? Like a week ago at this point, there's been no retirement announcement. There's been no, hey, I love Green Bay. I want to be a cheesehead for life. So it's almost seems like it's definitely going to be the Jets, right? I think he would have retired at this point if he was going to.
Yeah, in terms of retirement, I do think that ball is passed. I guess we don't really know, but I think the Jets are the most fascinating team that he could go to at this point. I mean, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, that offense is stacked for him, and then the number one defense on the other side of the ball. I mean, if any team would want Rodgers and would be able to be a contender next year, that would be the team. And that story with the New York media and Aaron Rodgers, if things go south, I mean, that would be very interesting as well. And if things
be
go
great
up,
for content.
they'll love it.
Yeah. We welcome chaos on this show,
it could.
So.
I mean, there's two different extremes he could go. He could be a hero, or he could not play well, and the New York media just rips him a new one, and he regrets not retiring.
There are also rumors, Rachel, that and I don't know how valid these are, but that they're at least Rodgers has been tied possibly to the Titans, the Raiders, maybe the Dolphins. What are your thoughts on that? Should Rodgers just sign with the Jets? Do you think maybe there's links to other team? How do you see that?
Honestly, like we've seen the whole retirement QB thing recently, pan out. And I think he should retire. I mean, retiring at this point, that's my, unpopular opinion. I think he should retire.
I actually agree. I don't know about Kevin and Jimmy, but I'm with you there.
I just think going to the Jets could be, it could land great, but also it could not. And then it's like, that's your legacy. He's almost 40, which, shout out to the people who are 40. But I don't know how much time he has.
There's nothing wrong with being 40. Let's just put that out there.
Definitely not. But this is, I think, a situation, and I wonder what happened at the darkness retreat, to be honest. But I don't know. If I was him, I'd probably retire.
Yeah, Kevin, he said that he took one day, I guess, to think about his personal life, in the darkness, and one day to think about what it's like to retire, and one day to think about what it's like to play for a team other than Green Bay. Do you want to translate any of this? Like, should we just stop talking about Rodgers till he makes a decision? I'm actually fine with that, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
I think in order to translate, I would have to do a darkness retreat myself. I will get back to you. I'll see if I can find 4 days in my schedule. But I really
just do your TikTok videos from the darkness. You just hear him talking. You don't see.
Actually that's not a bad idea. No, I gotta say, I think the Rodgers thing. I respect where you guys are coming from with he should retire. I just think that like his ego probably won't let him, because I don't think he wants our last memories of him to be missing the playoffs and getting sent home by Anthony's Detroit Lions. I just don't think he wants that to be our last memory of him. I don't know.
Game in Rodgers' career, losing to Jared Goff, that would hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers would. We've talked about this a lot because, Brian, I remember you saying that you thought that he at least would make most teams that he would go to a contender. And I think that that's up in the air. I think it's fair to call him the best of the dominoes. I think it's fair to say that he is an upgrade over Derek Carr, but the Derek Carr picking the Saints before, Rodgers makes a decision, I respect it because he took the power in his own hands. Like, do you want to go be somebody's second choice? Like, the Jets made it clear that Rodgers was their first choice. So Carr taking the matter into his own hands, I respect a lot.
He saves face a little bit.
He went where he was wanted, right? And now and like you said, his contract is scheduled in a way. As far as Rodgers is concerned, with all due respect to the man who's a Hall of Famer, I don't think cares about mortgaging a team's future. I don't think he cares about what assets are being given up to get him. I think he wants to be courted. I think he wants to create the biggest haul in NFL history, which it'll probably be a good haul. I think freaking Russell Wilson's haul was insane. I don't know if any haul will ever touch that haul. But I think, yeah, if Rodgers goes somewhere else, I think it will be the Jets. And if he doesn't go anywhere and retires, I think that will be a little bit of a stain on his legacy. But we've gotten over worse than what we saw.
We'll be fine. We will definitely be fine.
We'll be able to.
Be fine?
That's the question. That is the exact question. So that's what I'm watching for in the coming days, I guess, because we're kind of out of time for weeks now. It's pretty much like now or never. Next couple, like this.
Free agency starts March 15th. The Packers are going to want some sort of resolution prior to then. So you're talking about 9 days. So yeah, essentially in the next week. It's like poop or get off the pot, essentially.
Nice.
Trying to keep it a family-friendly show.
PG.
Yeah. All right, let's stay. We're just all quarterbacks, or mostly quarterbacks today. We'll stay in the quarterback realm. And Rachel, I'm going to start with you on this because you actually used to work for the Dolphins. So the Dolphins to, quote, explore all options at quarterback. The insight comes from Josina Anderson, who added that Miami will consider moving in a different direction than current quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Anderson gave the impression that the Dolphins have serious concerns about his concussion history, understandably, and they have a decision to make with his upcoming fifth-year option, which needs to be exercised by May 1st. Dolphins general manager Chris Greer acknowledged last week that his durability is a factor in the team's decision-making process. Some of the quarterbacks that possibly we could see out there, Rodgers, which we mentioned, Jimmy Garoppolo, who has experience with Mike McDaniel, and Lamar Jackson floating around there. Still no decision. So what are your thoughts on the whole Miami quarterback situation, Rachel?
I mean, it's been a situation for a while now, right? I think this last season, we've just seen catastrophic injuries by Tua. And I think concussions in the NFL have always been a really hot topic, but just seeing how many he's had is alarming. So I think they have no choice but to explore other options. And although, he's clearly an amazing and talented quarterback, they have to. And I think it's just, he's so young, and your brain is nothing to play around with. So as much as we love this sport, I think as a person, we have to really think about what our bodies can handle. And I think it's definitely beyond that point.
I would say fully healthy, I'm still ready to ride with Tua, but we can't discount that. It's not a small health.
Fully healthy for Tua. He's had almost uncountable amounts of concussions. And so even with that, being fully healthy isn't even, I don't know if it's possible at this point.
So we can talk about whether it's like he's getting judo lessons to help him fall, or we can talk about his stature. And Jimmy, you mentioned that the quarterback you'd want possibly in Indianapolis is CJ Stroud, but there's another quarterback that a lot of people have at the top of the QB class, if not the overall draft, and that is quarterback Bryce Young out of Alabama. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Tua situation, Jimmy. Also, he weighed in at 204 pounds. We're going to talk about the combine. Our main topic is winners and losers of the combine. I guess I should have teased that earlier. But is it his size that makes Tua a concern? And therefore, should teams have serious issues with drafting Bryce Young so high in this draft?
Serious issues? Absolutely not. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the draft, if not the best quarterback in this draft, still easily, despite his size. And I think we've seen quarterbacks in the past. I know he's been compared to Kyler Murray specifically. Kyler Murray hasn't necessarily gone off the charts recently, but he's still a top-tier NFL quarterback. And I think Bryce Young could easily be that. And I don't think the size is something teams should monitor too closely when they're making a decision. But it's obviously part of his characteristics and NFL draft profile that you have to kind of look into. But I wouldn't take serious note of that because I still think he has a high IQ, high mechanics, and I think he's a solid quarterback that played at Alabama very well.
Well, you basically just described Tua also coming out of college.
Right. There you go.
Right? Very accurate, great mechanics, great at reading the field, highly statistical production coming out of Alabama, small guy who gets hit a lot and suffers concussions. So that's really what I'm getting. I'm not saying that teams shouldn't draft Bryce Young for his size. Teams drafted Kyler 1 overall. The Seahawks, if you look back to when Russ was drafted as a third rounder prior to his fall, he led them to a Super Bowl, led them to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them. But what if there's a concussion issue there too? And I'm not saying he's had any issues in college, but neither did Tua. He didn't have concussion issues. You get in the NFL, there's absolute physical freaks around you, bringing you down, slamming your head on the ground. If you're 5'10", 204 with water weight, I don't know. That's starting to be something on my radar as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Brian, because I feel like,
I asked Jimmy, and Kevin's
I'm
just going to take
I missed
this.
it. I totally missed who it was. Go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry.
Roll with it.
Well, I was just going to say it's a really interesting point because, you don't even think about that in terms of like height. You always think, can they get it over the O-line? Can they see the field clearly? But that's a really interesting point that durability becomes an issue at that point. Frame is its own sort of thing, as far as staying healthy. But I never thought of
that's what we're hearing. We're actually not hearing at this in 2023. General managers, front office executives are not really concerned with Young's height. We've seen whatever. Kyler Murray is almost the exact same height. He's got good hand size. It's the frame.
Right.
It's that was playing at what looked like a $185 at Alabama. Got up to 204 for the combine. Good for him. But how much is going to shrink off right after he's not chugging protein shakes and water throughout the season? It's the frame really that I'm referring to.
Yeah, and I'm struggling because I am still stuck on Tua, man. I've grown to appreciate his game so much. I was such a doubter.
Same.
I was such a doubter, to be honest with you. And when he turned it on last year and when he started, dicing defenses up and throwing for 404, I was like, who is this guy? This is not the guy I thought they had. And I was really excited, not as a Bills fan, obviously, that part was scary, but as an NFL fan, just to know that there was another great quarterback out there and just how fast it all just turned into life and death, basically. Not to be dramatic, but Rachel said it best. Your brain is nothing to mess with especially when you're, in your early to mid 20s, this is long-term stuff. And it's really sad because I kept waiting for the page to be turned on that narrative. I kept waiting for that to be just one of those early career hiccups, but it kind of feels like the more discussion and the more actual analysis of the injuries, the more logical it seems that we may see not much, if not any of Tua ever again, which is just depressing. I hate that thought.
He was in concussion protocol for a month and a half.
And the thing is, once you have one and you get another one, it just makes the one you initially had worse. There's a whole
compounds,
thing, post-concussion syndrome.
Yeah.
And it is not fun.
It's a legitimate concern. Like I said, I like Tua. I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm in on Tua. without the health concerns, but you cannot discount the health concerns. Rachel's right. You have to, as an organization, do your due diligence. So I'm going to ask one more question to you, Kevin. As a Bills fan, which quarterback, if they did have to replace Tua, which quarterback would scare you in Miami?
Lamar
Possible
Jackson.
options. I figured you
Number
would say
one,
that.
the scariest name that I saw on that list. I'm really, really hoping that the Ravens just, get their poop together, to quote Brian earlier, hoping they just get their stuff together. And
I have a 9-year-old son, so I just hear poop way too
I'm
much.
I'm hoping they get their stuff together and just figure it out, because he's such a generational talent and he deserves to be paid like one. So that's it. But if he goes to Miami, then yeah, I'm terrified of having to play him twice a year. Honestly,
we're gonna leave it there. We've had Lamar talks. We will have more Lamar talks as they figure out. I'm starting to see a lot of this non-exclusive franchise tag talk, which means that another team would be able to negotiate with Lamar, and the Ravens would get a chance to match it. I'm starting to think that's more likely. But let's get to one more legit headline before jumping into our main topic. Jalen Ramsey situation is likely to play out before free agency. Once again, March 15th. So we're talking about the next 9 days. Ian Rappaport says that if Ramsey is traded, the deal will likely be completed within the next week and a half. He thinks the Rams could get a first-round pick for the 3-time All-Pro. We speculated and talked about this with Greg Silver on one of the last week's shows, Kevin, and he put him in Dallas, which was just like, oh, that's just
great
way
fit.
Too
ridiculous fit.
That's just gotta happen at this point. And we put in today's Legit Football that last week Peter King himself mentioned the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Bills as potential landing spots. And the Athletics' Jeff Howe says there's a rumor picking up steam in league circles that the Cowboys will be a good fit. Jimmy, I will start with you on this one. Are the Cowboys going to trade for Jalen Ramsey? And if not, what other team is going to be in the mix?
I mean, I heard the Bills, and I thought that was very interesting to see him go to that defense. I mean, Jalen Ramsey can still play at an elite level. He has some cap hits that
Kevin's trying to keep his excitement in at that prospect.
My ears perked right up.
Yeah, Kevin and I were both like, oh, the Bills. I mean,
hello.
The Bills, I think it would be phenomenal. I mean, the Cowboys are so stacked on defense, though, that if they added Jalen Ramsey, I mean, that defense would be absolutely nuclear as a whole, even though they are already. But yeah, I think the Bills are a much more interesting spot. But I think any team that gets Jalen Ramsey will benefit greatly.
I mean, I think you mentioned a couple contenders, or at least teams that whether you call the Cowboys contenders, they were competing for the NFC East until the very end of the season. They won their wild card round playoff game, so you could call them at least a contender in the NFC. I think that's probably where Ramsey's going to end up. His team is going to want to give him a first if they feel like they're a piece away. Rachel, we have not let you discuss your favorite team yet. I know who your favorite team is, but we should at least get it out there. So we know that Kevin is a Bills fan, Jimmy is a Colts fan, Anthony, our producer behind the scene, is a diehard Lions fan, and I'm a Dolphins fan. Why don't you let us know who your team is and then your thoughts on Jalen Ramsey?
I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan through and through.
There you go.
I'm just getting back into the football talk because my heart simply could not take it.
Yeah.
And if Jalen Ramsey ends up in Dallas, that is not good. I don't care what y'all say. That is actually really bad. No, he's incredibly talented, and I hope he doesn't end up in Dallas.
She's like, he can go to Buffalo. That's fine.
Yeah. Rachel, I'm sorry for your loss. That was tough. I don't want to see the Chiefs win, so I share in your pain.
I'm not okay.
Sent Josh home too many times, so I feel you.
You'll probably take you the rest until next season to fully grieve, and that's okay.
Right. I was like, I don't know if I can do the show, Brian. Like, I don't know.
It's still too early.
I said the same thing. It was therapy for me, Rachel. Getting back in here was therapy. So you're in good hands. We're gonna help you through it. But yeah, the Ramsey Cowboys stuff. I mean, imagine him and Diggs. That's got to be immediately goes to the most elite cornerback duo in the league, right? Hands down. Yeah.
Certainly up there. Yeah. I mean, well, it depends. If James Bradbury came back last year, I would say it was Bradbury and Slay in Philly. Bradbury is a free agent. But yeah, what about Tre'Davious White and Jalen Ramsey? You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to get your hopes up. I can tell.
The thing with the Jalen Ramsey to the Bills thing is, it's a little bit of a hopes thing. It's also, I'm a little terrified at what they'd have to give up in terms of capital, Brian. We talked about, look, they're still a Super Bowl contending team with a couple of the right moves, but there are holes to be plugged. I don't want to see the Bills mortgage or leverage their future any more than they already have with some of the contracts that they've doled out. I want to see, with all due respect to the big flashy moves, which are always fun every year, I want a boring offseason, as crazy as that sounds for the Bills. I really do. I don't want to say run it back, but I want, for the most part, I want a new offensive line and a wide receiver too. Like, is that too much to ask?
Apparently, Bean and McDermott still high on Gabe Davis. We're starting to hear that coming out of the combine. And he had a high ankle sprain. Is what we're seeing.
He played through it. Yeah, he was banged up all year pretty much. And you know, how often, with all due respect to my guy Gabe, I love him, but how often do we hear about the injuries after the seasons when the players underperform? You know what I'm saying? I think that's just kind of a, not to be, you know, disrespectful. I think that's just kind of a not a cop out, but you know. It's maybe a little bit of an excuse, in my opinion.
We have some breaking news.
Stop.
Did anybody else see that?
No, that's all you, man.
News.
You're the Twitter guy. Break it. Let's break it on the air.
The Seahawks and Geno Smith are finalizing a 3-year contract extension worth $105 million.
Nice.
Wow.
Good for Geno.
He got
Good
his
for Geno.
bag.
Getting paid. Anthony, put it on the ticker so we can have it flashing across here.
That's
so
wild.
It's funny because I had just started to see a lot of news around that they would not franchise tag him, and I was a little surprised by that because the season he had, everyone, including myself, completely ruled out the Seahawks before the season even began back in training camp when I'm like, they're going to roll out Geno or Drew Lock. Yeah, good luck with that. Bobby Wagner gone, Russell Wilson gone. But not only does he have a successful season, he leads them to the playoffs. And they were leading that division for at least half the season. So I was surprised when they said they weren't going to franchise tag him. But this makes so much more sense. The fact that they agreed to a 3-year deal, it's not too long. You still need Geno to kind of prove himself. What did you say is 110? So it's
105, right? Yeah.
105. So you're talking about like what, 35-ish per year? Like great for Geno Smith to get that payday at this point.
The Seahawks
quick grades, Kevin. Let's do grades.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'll just start by saying, Brian, you wrote him off, but he didn't write back.
Yeah.
32nd in your power rankings preseason. I can't wait till I have people dunk on me for my takes. I'm so excited. But I just want to say,
I got a lot right too, though. Just
you really
that out there.
You were the guru in the playoffs. Nobody saw you as far as calling games in the playoffs. That was crazy. But I think it's a great signing. I think I'll give it a B+ because that's a lot of money for a guy who's Geno's age and with his production profile, but he really did turn the team around and he really was like unbelievably effective in that offense. And, so B+ as far as you got your guy, you're keeping your guy, continuity, you have the chance now to, retool around Geno and continue to build. So yeah, definitely a win for the Seahawks, a win for Geno, A+ for Geno. That's a bag.
Drafted in 2013. So 10 years, and he washes out in the Jets. He played for the Giants, right? Yep. I think he was there with when Daniel Jones was first there.
So backup, right?
Was backing up Russ in Seattle for so long. Gets a shot to start. Nobody gives him a chance. I wrote him off, and he didn't write back. And Geno, I'm glad that you didn't write back. I also have him on one of my dynasty teams, so extremely excited to see that he's still going to be in Seattle. Rachel, quick thoughts on Geno staying with the Seahawks?
I mean, A+++ for sure. I mean, I think he deserves it. He's had an incredible season. Give the fans something to be excited about.
Definitely.
Yeah. And $35 million a year, I don't think it's too bad for a quarterback, especially when he was the lightning rod to that offense last year. And they have a lot of good rookies. We'll see what they can do next year. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, what's the exclusive franchise tag? It's in that ballpark anyway, correct? So they're not really overpaying for him. If they franchise tagged him, it would be at least in that vicinity. But this way, at least they lock him up for the next 3 years. Good on Seattle. Good on Geno Smith. That also means it doesn't preclude them from taking a quarterback at number 5. Gives them more flexibility. Ooh. I don't know if this is the class where there's like a lockdown quarterback anyway. I don't know. I like the move by the player and the team.
Jimmy, does that open up number 5 for your Colts? Does
that
open
4?
Oh,
Colts
they're
at
4.
four.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
Oh,
I should
never
hope
mind.
the Colts don't want to
Probably
move
not.
backwards.
I was thinking. I
Probably not.
confused them with the Panthers. Panthers are 9, right?
Honestly, I did the
Yeah,
same thing. I
Panthers
think
are
I
9.
did that on a previous episode. Is I just keep confusing the Carolina at 9 and
It's
the
light
Colts at
blue.
4.
It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So does
Yeah,
that open up the
sure.
Panthers for 5? I feel like 5 is wide open
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though. Why would you get behind the Texans? Why not go for the Cardinals at 3? Arizona's at 3.
Yeah.
So
you
I don't think you're going to want to get behind Indy and Houston. Then you're getting the third quarterback.
You have to assume that at that point, if it depends on who's their guy, because if their guy is one of the top 3, then yeah, you got to leapfrog Houston.
Yeah.
But
it's
if your
definitely
guy
gonna
is-
trade- But it seems like, and this could all change, and maybe Anthony Richardson they're
That's what I
enamored
was
with him.
thinking.
But and this will actually go right into our main topic.
Mm-hmm.
But Will Levis, I don't think you're not going to trade up for Will Levis in all likelihood. And this just what you're giving me this
You're
look
not?
like. I don't know.
You're not? You're not gonna trade for Will
I
Levis?
wouldn't, based
Really?
on what I've seen and know so far.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? What a perfect segue. Let's go into our main topic, which is NFL Combine winners and losers. Maybe you think Levis is a winner. I don't know. I am going to give the first shot to our new guest, Rachel. So Rachel will just let you kick it off. You can take it in whatever direction you want. Winner, loser, both from this weekend's NFL Combine.
You also can make up rules if you want. That's something I
Oh, yeah,
learned
whatever.
earlier. I was
Kevin
just trying
does-
it out. It rocked.
Yeah, let's
So
do that. I mean, I think I'll go big winner, Anthony Richardson. Like, he's a household name now. It's crazy weekend for him, but I can't say I'm surprised. Like, I think he's going to be a star. He already is. He's fast.
Well, I'm not surprised that he tested well, but just how well he tested is the thing that really stood out with me. So he's 6'4", 244 pounds. That's like an edge rusher. Jeez. That's a solid edge rusher. This guy's a quarterback. Ran a 4.43 40-yard dash, which is the 4th best ever for a quarterback since 2003, and nobody that ran faster than that was at his size. 10.9 broad jump, 40.5-inch vertical leap. Those are both records for a quarterback position.
A lot of records being broken at the combine. I think he's exciting to watch. I mean, he's already being compared to the likes of Cam Newton and other like really incredible, really impactful quarterbacks. So I think it's a great position for him to be in.
The guy apparently started calling himself Cam Jackson in high school because he was a mix of Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton.
That's so dope.
No lacking in bravado there. So yes, Anthony Richardson, I think probably the clear and away number. I think we can all agree. Like, he's first on my list. I did not expect to be the one to share because I figured somebody else was. Do you have anybody that maybe you would view as a loser for this, or should we? We're pivoting, Kevin. Should we go around and do winners and then come back?
Let's do it. I love it.
Okay,
on the fly.
So Jimmy, you're up next. Name one winner from the combine that you were at in person?
No way. Jimmy Ray.
Yeah, on Saturday,
Yeah, we should
Saturday,
say, yeah.
That's
Jimmy
sick.
was there. Don't give the
stands.
caveat. Say yes, I was at the combine. You don't have to tell everybody it was just Saturday.
Yep, I was
That's
there on the
sick.
field. I was
So
talking to Anthony Richardson. No. But
In
seriously.
between your throwing session when you were trying to get a
Right, yeah.
drafted. Okay.
Anyways, we're going to be talking a lot about this college, Georgia. I'm picking a guy out of Georgia, an edge rusher, Nolan Smith. He had a 41.5-inch vertical, second fastest 40 time of any edge rusher since 2003. I mean, that Georgia defense always brings out the best of players, and then they come to the combine and just knock that at the park. I see Nolan Smith as a first-round pick, and he's going to make a big difference to somebody's defensive side of the ball.
He ran faster than most of the running backs and a lot of the wide receivers. 4.39. That's absolutely insane. 6'2", 238. So smaller than Anthony Richardson. But I think we've seen just how explosive he can be. And we're starting to see that he could be not only a first-round pick, but maybe inching into the top 20 or even top 15 after that combine performance. Kevin, winner from the combine.
Yeah, shout out to Nolan. That's a crazy 40 time. We talked about it on Friday, Brian. That just blew my mind. Faster than Stephon Diggs? Are you kidding me? Faster than Justin Jefferson? That's crazy. Good for him. Faster than quads? Wild. Okay, sorry. My winner, I'm between two, Brian. So I'm gonna ask you. Do you want what's behind door number A or what's behind door number B? Letter B.
Well, I mean, my first initial is B. Of course, I'm gonna go with B. That's a no-brainer.
My winner for the combine, you got my other one. Hopefully, is Bijan Robinson. And for the record, dynasty drafters in the top 3 picks for fantasy football. Bijan Robinson had a crazy 40 time. He tested exactly as well as everybody thought he was going to test. He's a freak. He's a great athlete. And we're going to see another first round running back this year, which is something that we talked about last week as well. It's irresponsible to rule out a position as a GM in a round because you have to see all the pieces and you have to be flexible. You have to be water. Bijan Robinson won himself a first round, maybe even, like you said, of Nolan, maybe a top 20 pick with how he tested at the combine. I mean, and nobody's surprised. Everybody who's been watching Bijan Robinson for years expected that. So I think if you have a top 3 pick in a dynasty draft this year, Anthony Richardson is really looking real good. I think Bijan Robinson's looking really good, and I think maybe Brian's winner from this combine will also be looking really good if we have the same next man up. So
do I have door number A?
Yeah, you have door number A.
Bijan Robinson, just as a refresher, and of course everybody you guys have mentioned are on my list as well. 4.46 in the 40, 215 pounds. The only running back at that size to run faster in this combine was Tulsa running back Deneric Prince, who ran 4.41 at 216. He looked amazingly fluid in the running back drills. No brainer. This guy locked himself in for a nice payday. So I have a number of choices here, and I'm at least gonna, honorable mention some of the other ones, but I think the one I have to mention is we're sticking with UGA. We're sticking with the University of Georgia. Tight end Darnell Washington.
Nice.
6'7", 264 pounds, ran a 4.64 40 and a 4.08 shuttle, which was the best among tight ends. Made an amazing, maybe the catch of the combine, this twisting one-handed grab. This guy's 6'7", 264 pounds. He's almost offensive tackle size. And then I don't know if you guys saw some of the video on Twitter of the blocking where they showed a number of the tight ends doing the sled blocking drill, and then they show Darnell. It's not even close. He freaking manhandles that thing, throws it back 10 yards like it's silly putty. This guy is an absolute beast. He may not be as productive as your Michael Mayer or some of these other big name tight ends, but as far as testing goes, I think he benched in 22, 23 reps. He's just an absolute beast, so he's clearly a winner. In a pretty deep tight end class, Darnell Washington definitely stood out. All right,
yeah.
do you guys have any honorable mentions? I've got a few more I can kind of.
I was gonna say I really liked what we saw from Jackson Smith and Jigba. I was debating between him and Washington for my first main trip. I think he locked himself in as being the first receiver selected, which kind of bums me out as a Bills fan because I was hoping he would be there at 27. I think another winner, really quick, just while we're on it. I think NFL GMs are winners because a lot of studs, and this kind of ties into the losers. A lot of studs didn't test as great as we thought they were going to, and I think they're going to be available a little bit later than we thought, which I think is huge for teams in the later of the first round and in the second round. I think we're going to see some really, really elite talent in the second round this year, which is always exciting for those teams and not so much for those players. That sucks for them, but great for the teams who are able to get their guys later.
I like that you got a little creative. When we get to the losers, I have a few, nice. Not just player names as losers of the combine. So here, I'll let you guys go. Rachel, Jimmy, any other winners you want to throw in there before we move on to losers?
I like Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee, the wide receiver. He was in that first group of wide receivers. I think he had a pretty solid performance, especially in a class that isn't necessarily to die for. So kind of like Kevin mentioned, there's a lot of names up there. There's a lot of possibilities, but I think he definitely proved himself, and he'll be up there in terms of wide receivers.
Definitely.
I should mention Jackson Smith and Jigba. So was the best in short shuttle at 3.93 seconds, the best 3-cone drill for the wide receivers at 6.57, and easily the best in the drills. His route running looked so crisp. He had a hamstring injury last year after a great year the year before, and what you keep hearing is that people think he was the best wide receiver amongst Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave on that Ohio State team. Yeah. So, and we both saw what kind of rookie years they had. Very exciting. He's
going to be a monster for sure.
All right, Rachel, I'll turn it over to you. You can throw in another winner or just go right into your combine loser.
Let's go losers, but with an asterisk, because I don't think it's fair to call anybody a
I know.
loser.
I
Like,
thought
it's
about
not
risers and
NBA.
fallers, but I'm like, you know what? Winners and losers
So
just
mean.
catches your attention.
It does have a better ring to it. But I think,
Yeah.
like, imagine if somebody judged me on, like, my worst day, right? Like, everyone
Fair
has
enough.
bad
Now you're
days,
making
you
me
know?
feel bad. All right,
Yeah, you
fine.
should feel
Riser.
bad.
Who is your draft? Who's your faller then? That sounds a little gentler.
Right, faller, whatever you want to call him. Mine will
Yeah.
probably be Jordan Addison. I really thought he was going to shine.
Yeah.
I mean, some crazy stat, like I think, and Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, but like in the last 26 games, he scored 25 touchdowns. And I was really expecting him to, do all the things, run fast, jump high, and maybe he just had a bad day.
Yeah, and that's the problem with having a bad day in this scenario is you might have cost yourself a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
But I agree. I considered putting Addison on my list. Kevin, you mentioned this wide receiver class doesn't necessarily jump off the paper anyway. So a guy like Addison that is in that conversation to be the first wide receiver taking, running slower than a lot of people thought he would in the 40, not really putting up those explosive numbers, had some drops in the wide receiver drills. Not the best day for him.
I think that kind of highlights what he was the exact name I was talking about when I said I think the GMs are winners, because Addison might be available in the back half of the first. And I think we're going to see, you know what? I don't want to spoil anything. I'll get back to you in a second when it's my turn on the losers. Jimmy
Go
Ray.
ahead. You know what? Run with it.
If we're going out of order, if we're cool with the disarray,
we're always cool with the disarray. We're always pivoting.
You make the rules. You make the rules, Kevin.
That's right. We already learned
show,
this.
really. It should just say Kevin hosts. Brian is just here for the journey.
Hey, we're all here for the vibes. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amen. Brother.
So, I was gonna say one of my biggest thoughts of this is that the teams who are picking in the later rounds or in the later half of the rounds, they're going to be able to grab guys that fall, right? Which we're calling them fallers, which I think is dope. So Jordan Addison sort of falling out, I think it's going to be really interesting where that leaves those extra vacant slots where they might have gone earlier. I think the people who we see like elevate into those positions, it's going to be really interesting to see those names that, like a Nolan Smith, for example. I don't think a lot of people thought he would be in the top half of the first round, but now if we factor Nolan Smith up there, that means a name that we had chalked up here is going to be down. So that'll be really interesting to see who those names are who we see fall out of the early half of the first. I'm very excited to see how it all shakes out.
Are you going to list a faller?
Give me 1 second. I was very locked in on Addison. I'm going to have to just pivot really quick, but
Fair
I just
enough,
wanted
fair
to,
enough.
yeah.
All right, let's throw it to Jimmy then, because that's how we do here.
All right. No, I mean, Kevin was making some really good points. The Colts have a top pick in the second round, and I think that's one of the more exciting picks is that early pick in the second round when players fall. You can get some first-round talents in the early second round. But we're talking about fallers here. We're not talking about losers. Thank you, Rachel, for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. I have
already making improvements to the show. What a great addition.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
She'll be the boss before we know it.
Yeah, of course. So by next week.
Watch out, Brian.
It's a foregone conclusion. I'm fine with it.
All right, so I'm going to go with another wide receiver. I have some more honorable mentions if you guys don't get to them. LSU wide receiver Keyshawn Bout. I can go over his stats real quick. 39th in the 10-yard split, 1.58 seconds. Second to last in the broad jump, and dead last in the vertical at 29 inches.
29. Didn't even hit 30.
People were hitting 40 inches. He didn't get to 30. So I mean, a big blow. Obviously, as we talk about the combine being like one day, and everybody has bad days, they'll get a chance to work out with other teams, and they'll do what needs to be done to confirm kind of those numbers and if he can improve those. But you have pro days, you have workouts, individual workouts where there's less pressure and TV and fans on you like myself. So everybody will get a chance to. I just wanted to show some love to all the fallers/losers. So
definitely.
Yeah, and he was the reason why that's notable is because last year he was considered pretty much a surefire first-round pick. This isn't a guy who was like on the fringe and just didn't have a great day. And I think and he can make it up, but at least with the results of the combine, it seems like he's played himself out of the first round, and so he fell. He's a faller. There we go. I like this. We're rolling with it.
Where's it
so
going?
I'm gonna mention a couple honorable mention fallers. Some of these / losers, because these are not players. These are not individuals. And then I'll mention the one that I really want to mention. So the Jets, if Rodgers doesn't sign with them, if it doesn't get traded to them, because it's clear that the Carr deal got done during this time. Like a lot of these front office executives, they go to the combine, sure, to see the draft prospects, but they do it to get deals done. The fact that we saw him sign with New Orleans, if the Jets don't get Rodgers, they're in a bind. So I'm going to have them as a loser. I'm just going to say the word. Sorry, Armand, our regular who's a Jets fan. Curious to see your thoughts in the chat. Off-ball linebackers as a position, no clear first-round talent, and you're maybe looking at 2 to 3 in the first 3 rounds altogether. So you could talk about positional value, Kevin, and maybe there's just less. They're getting a little smaller. They're getting a little bit lighter, but there's just not any just stalwart middle linebackers or off-ball linebackers from this draft class. But here is my ultimate faller. Definitely not a loser. So this is actually more apt to use this term. How about quarterback Bryce Young?
Yeah.
And some people can say that he's a winner because he had weighed in over 200. And people were like, hey, if he just gets to 199, I'm fine. He got to 204, fine. Kyler Murray was 5'10" and 207, so very similar profiles. But if you look at those two guys next to each other, and there is an image on the internet, on Twitter, with Kyler Murray standing next to Bryce Young, there's no way. Bryce Young looks like he's 30 pounds lighter. But the reason he's a faller is because Richardson tested so well, Stroud threw so well, and Levis was iffy, but Levis has got an absolute cannon for an arm, and he got to show that off. So the other 3 quarterbacks that are competing to go at the top of the draft all improved their stock, some of them significantly in the case of Richardson, whereas Young didn't even throw. And maybe it was a good decision not to throw, standing out on that field next to these giant statues, sculptures of human beings. But I just think by default, because of how those other quarterbacks fared, Young is a faller, or at least the guys below him have shortened the gap.
I completely agree with that. And it's tough because, no pun intended, it feels a little bit like low-hanging fruit because there's nothing he can do about it. I mean, he did
I don't think that's a pun.
It was low-hanging fruit.
That was
like,
good. That was good.
Because he's short? No?
Oh, low-hanging fruit. Okay, good. So there I am for not getting it. Okay. But
I was like, yeah, right?
That's why we need sound effects. This is perfect for the rim shot, Anthony. We got to work on that.
I do think he's going to still be the first overall pick.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think so too.
I think that's good money. And I think it's good money that it's not Chicago making that pick, which is just fascinating. That's just another day in the quarterback carousel books. I cannot wait for that one. When that first overall pick inevitably gets traded. But I've had a second to formulate what I was trying to say earlier. I loved the rant that I went on about names. You know, it was definitely what I was trying to say, but I thought about it a little bit. We will have a clear winner or loser on whether or not the combine actually matters when this draft happens. And that was what I was thinking, was because really at the end of the day, there are so many people who are measurements and combine and traits over tape. And there are people who say, no, tape over measurements. I don't care what they run. I don't care what they test. I know what my eyes tell me when I watch them on the football field. And this draft, because of all the traitsy freaks that we watched, because of all the records that are getting broken, we will have a winner and loser in that debate. And I'm leaning on the side of traits this year. I think we're going to start seeing, because of Josh Allen, because of Jalen Hurts, because of these athletic marvels who are redefining how the game is played. I think we're going to see the tape people take a nice L this draft when we see the traits people get drafted way ahead of the tape people.
For the record, I'm a both. I'd like to see
I like both
tape
too. Yeah.
and the traits.
Yeah,
because
there's got to be a marriage of the two, I think, in your perfect process, I think.
So I've got one more, we'll call it honorable mention. Put this in the category of guys I had never even heard of who tested insanely, and that's tight end Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion. 6'7", 255 pounds, 40-inch vertical, 4.55 40. Both were the best ever for someone of that height in combine history. Is he going to be a great tight end in the NFL? I don't know, but that guy is an absolute beast, and I just had to mention that. Do you guys have any thoughts, any comments, any last words as we wrap up the 2023 NFL Combine?
I have Richard Garage out of Florida, offensive lineman. He had an ankle injury. This is kind of off the field. He had an ankle injury because of a pain tolerance test that was given to him by a team. He woke up the next day after the pain tolerance test and he had a swollen ankle.
Apparently, there was a lot of pushback on Twitter that it was not a pain tolerance test and it was just like a simple examination. and it was the words of who was it? It was either Rappaport or Schefter who put it out there,
Yeah.
and it was more like a spin because there was no such thing as a pain tolerance test.
I don't know. Yeah. Rappaport said pain tolerance.
That's
but
pretty wild.
Either way, having an ankle injury when you wake up and not being able to do any drills, it's unfortunate. So that's not a loser per se, but maybe a little faller.
It's a bummer.
I've made it a point to follow at least a few different sports MD Twitter profiles that specialize and really break down these sports injuries, and those are the ones I started to see pushback from, like saying that the NFL, these health professionals, they don't do what do they call it, a injury? What was the word you used?
Pain tolerance.
Pain tolerance. Yeah, that doesn't actually exist.
That's a
so it
crazy
seems like
title.
That sounds
a
sketchy.
test.
Right. Hey, we're gonna see how much pain you can handle. Are you ready? Like
Let's
what?
not.
They just swing a hammer on your ankle.
Yeah, that's what
I mean,
I'm picturing.
they do play in the NFL, so there's a lot of pain that goes around.
You know that carnival game where you have that giant like mallet and you bang, like that's what I'm
They just put
imagining.
his ankle there.
That's
railing
a strength
from
test.
misery.
That's a straight.
They're hitting him with the hammer.
Wow, that's dark. I thought you were going to go in a different direction, Jimmy Ray, but it's another thought that I have for the combine. Do we need to see 340-pound men sprint as fast as they can anymore? Is that necessary? Because I don't know if you guys saw the dude coming up lame on there was like a lineman who was running the 40.
Wanya Morris.
Yeah, and he tweaked his ankle, and this man's not sprinting. He might be pulling in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, and he's going 60%. You know what I mean? I don't know about all that. All that.
He hurt his hamstring, I think,
lineman.
like grade 2 hamstring, something like that. I had that on my list as well that I was going to mention. So
That's tough.
But there's so many offenses that rely on zone blocking schemes and pulling linemen and athletic traits for offensive linemen. So I actually do. Plus, it's kind of fun to see those
40
big
yards.
guys.
40 yards.
Yeah.
Are they blocking 40 yards down the field? A little bit, I guess.
Okay,
Every now and then.
maybe not.
Yeah.
It's possible, but I definitely don't think it's necessary. And
That's
then you
probably
end
not
up with these
necessary.
stories of people who get injured before they're even signed to a team. Like it just seems
It's so sad.
I mean,
you
can they choose? Do they have to?
I mean, they could opt. There's other people who opted out.
they can-
Jackson
they don't
Smith and
have to, I
Jigba didn't run the
guess.
40. Bryce Young
Yeah.
didn't throw. There's other players who were injured. Who Witherspoon, the cornerback, he didn't participate at all. So you can just say no.
I feel like you don't get those freak hybrid offensive lineman tight ends without knowing a little bit about their, I believe the term that is used is their RAS score, their relative athletic score.
Athletic score.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
RAS, yeah.
if I guess that's the one caveat to that is if you don't run, then we don't know that you're freakishly fast for your size, which can be a huge trait that is looked after. I mean, Buffalo's Spencer Brown, their starting right tackle the past couple of years, he's almost coasting off his athleticism. He's not really very technically sound. He's going into his third season, but he's like one of the best athletes in the NFL based on RAS. So I understand. I think that's, to your point, Brian, I think that is a feather in the cap of still running it and still proving what a freak athlete
Especially
you are.
if you're a traits guy, as you say,
Right.
you're just really increasing your strength. You think back to Mekhi Becton, who is proven to be a very much a bust as an offensive tackle, but he was an absolute giant of an offensive lineman, got drafted by the Jets, had a great combine, and hasn't shown well at all. But he got paid. He had a good combine, so make it optional.
It's interesting.
Anything else? Any last words? 2023 combine in the books.
It's over. Now we get to the fun part.
We did it. The fun part.
That is, I couldn't have said it better myself. Now it's over. We get to the fun part. We get to see who drafts these teams. We get to see free agency before that to see what the team needs are for various teams. There's so much information and data we don't have yet, and I can't wait to get it. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you're here for the first time. If you're just listening on podcast, always got to remind you to check out the YouTube. There's all sorts of cool things going on. Scrolling across the bottom from our producer, Anthony Wayner, you get to see all of our mugs and how we react to various situations. I want to thank Rachel Smith, who you will be seeing a lot more of as part of the Legit Football team. Rachel, thank you for coming on and bringing amazing insight. Jimmy Ray, always fantastic to have you on. Check out at NFL_stats on Twitter. You want to plug your XFL thing? I see you're doing that a lot now.
I've been trying out the XFL. It really gets me into the new spring leagues, and like Ben DiNucci's been killing it. Josh Gordon.
And Josh Gordon. Yeah.
I mean,
awesome.
it's so much fun. Defenders and Roughnecks 3-0. I mean, It's football, live football. You get stats. It's fun when there's no NFL's like stats coming out every single day. You know,
the stats guy. I mean, that's true. He just needs the
fun.
stats. Me, I need the news. So I'm like, I can't watch any more football that's not NFL right now. I need to dive into these headlines. Jimmy's like, I just need stats. Put it in my veins.
They need to hire me to run their website because it's just it's incorrect all over the place. I mean, it's just chaos. So
let's go.
If The Rock is listening right now, then hit me up.
Of course he is.
Yeah, always.
Regular watcher and listener of the Legit Football.
What up, Dwayne?
My boy.
All right, before we go any more off the tracks, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Armand, our resident Jets fan, always nice to see you. Thanks again for watching and listening. This has been the Legit Football NFL Podcast. We'll be back on Friday.